The alarm on the bridge of the USS Meridian broke the peaceful silence of space. Captain Jake Morrison looked up from his coffee as the communication officer turned toward him with wide eyes. "Sir, we're getting a distress signal. It's not from any human ship." Jake set down his cup and walked to the communication station. The signal was weak, crackling with static, but the universal translator was working hard to decode the alien language. "Any civilization capable of helping, please respond. Our world is under attack. We are dying." The voice belonged to someone desperate. Jake could hear explosions in the background, screams, and the sound of buildings falling down. His stomach twisted as he listened. "Lieutenant Brooks, can you clean up this signal?" Jake asked. Sarah Brooks worked at her station, fingers flying over the controls. Slowly, the static cleared, and the alien voice became stronger. "This is Ambassador Veltar of the Kalari people. Our homeworld Zetha Prime is under attack by the Vorthak Empire. We have no weapons, no military. We are scholars and artists. They are killing everyone. Our cities are burning. We offer everything we have, all our knowledge, all our culture, just for help getting our people to safety." Jake felt his jaw clench. The Kalari sounded like they were good people, peaceful people, and someone was destroying them just because they could. "Sir," Brooks said quietly, "I'm picking up video feed with the signal. Put it on screen." The main display filled with images that made Jake's blood run cold. Beautiful crystal cities were on fire. Strange bird-like aliens with colorful feathers were running through streets as dark ships fired down from the sky, children crying as their parents tried to protect them, libraries and schools exploding into dust. "How many ships are attacking them?" Jake asked. Brooks checked her sensors. "Long-range scans show at least 400 Vorthak vessels surrounding their planet." "This isn't a battle, sir. It's total destruction." Jake stared at the screen. 400 ships against a planet with no defenses. It reminded him of the stories his grandfather told about Earth's dark past, when stronger nations destroyed weaker ones just because they wanted their land or resources. "Get me a direct line to Admiral Kane on Earth," Jake ordered. "Emergency priority." While Brooks established the connection, Jake watched more of the terrible images. The Vorthak weren't just conquering the planet. They were burning everything, destroying art and books, killing anyone who couldn't work as a slave. Admiral Lisa Kane's face appeared on screen. She was in her office on Earth late at night, but she looked alert and ready. "Captain Morrison, what's the situation?" "Ma'am, we've received a distress call from a species called the Kalari. They're peaceful people under attack by something called the Vorthak Empire. It's bad, Admiral. Really bad." Jake transmitted the video feed to Earth. He watched Admiral Kane's expression change as she saw the burning cities and fleeing families. "How many enemy ships?" Kane asked. 400, ma'am. The Kalari have no military at all. They're asking for help evacuating their people." Admiral Kane was quiet for a long moment, studying the images. Jake knew she was thinking about more than just this one battle. Earth had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago, and humans tried to stay neutral in alien conflicts. But this wasn't really a conflict. This was murder. "Captain, maintain your position and continue monitoring the situation. Do not engage the Vorthak fleet." "That's an order." "Yes, ma'am." The connection ended, but Jake could see Kane was still thinking. He knew the Admiral well enough to recognize that look. She was planning something. Back on Earth, Admiral Kane walked to her window and looked out at the city lights. Her aide, Colonel Ben Rodriguez, entered the office with a tablet full of reports. "The Joint Chiefs are asking for your recommendation, Admiral," Rodriguez said. "Standard protocol would be to offer refugee ships or maybe send a diplomatic vessel." Kane turned from the window. "Ben, how many ships do we have in the Third Fleet?" 200, ma'am. Why?" "Because 400 Vorthak ships are destroying a peaceful civilization, and I'm tired of watching bullies win because good people don't fight back." Rodriguez understood immediately. "Ma'am, that would mean total war. We've never deployed an entire battle fleet for a rescue operation." "They didn't ask for a rescue operation, Ben. They asked for help, and humanity doesn't do anything halfway." Kane walked to her desk and activated her personal communication system. In minutes, she was connected to the President, the Secretary of Defense, and the heads of all military branches. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kane said, "we have a situation that requires immediate action. A peaceful alien species is being exterminated by an aggressive empire. They've asked for help." The President leaned forward on screen. "Admiral, what kind of help are we talking about?" "The permanent kind, sir. I want to deploy the entire Third Fleet to eliminate the Vorthak threat completely. That's 200 ships, Lisa, the Secretary of Defense said. For a refugee operation? Kane's voice was steady and cold. No, sir. For a demonstration. The galaxy needs to learn that attacking innocent people has consequences. Real consequences. Back on the USS Meridian, Jake received new orders an hour later. His ship was to proceed immediately to Zetha Prime and coordinate with the incoming Third Fleet. Jake read the orders twice to make sure he understood correctly. Brooks, did Admiral Kane just authorize the deployment of our entire battle fleet? Yes, sir. 200 ships, including the USS Devastator. Jake whistled softly. The Devastator was humanity's newest siege ship, designed to crack open enemy strongholds. It had never been used in actual combat. Sir, Brooks continued, I'm also getting reports that Admiral Kane sent a message to the Galactic Cooperative. She told them that humanity was responding to the Kalari distress call, and that any interference would be considered an act of war. Jake smiled grimly. Admiral Kane wasn't just sending help. She was sending a message to every aggressive species in the galaxy that Earth would not tolerate the destruction of innocent people. As the USS Meridian changed course toward Zetha Prime, Jake looked at the continuing video feed from the Kalari world. The bird-like aliens were still dying, still running, still hoping someone would save them. They had asked for help. They were about to get much more than they expected. In space, distance meant everything moved slowly. But Jake knew that somewhere behind him, 200 human warships were preparing to jump to faster-than-light speed. The Vorthak Empire thought they were destroying another helpless world. They had no idea they were about to meet humanity's idea of justice. The docking bay of the USS Phoenix was buzzing with activity. Pilots ran to their fighters while mechanics made final checks on weapons and engines. Commander Alex Turner stood in front of his squadron, looking at the faces of men and women who had trained their whole lives for this moment. Listen up. Raptors, Alex said, his voice carrying over the noise. We're about to jump into a system where 400 enemy ships are destroying a peaceful planet. The Kalari people asked for help. Admiral Kane decided to give them our entire Third Fleet. The pilots looked at each other with surprise and excitement. Most of them had never seen real combat. They had run training missions and patrol duties, but this was different. The Vorthak Empire thinks they can destroy anyone they want because they're stronger, Alex continued. Today we're going to show them what happens when they pick on someone under human protection. Meanwhile, on the flagship USS Valiant, Admiral Kane stood in the command center surrounded by holographic displays, showing all 200 ships of her fleet. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, built with lessons learned from centuries of warfare on Earth. Status report, Kane ordered. All ships ready for jump. Admiral, reported her operations officer. The Devastator is loaded and ready. Marine assault ships are standing by for planetary operations. Kane nodded. The Devastator was her secret weapon, a massive ship designed to break enemy fleets in half. It had cost more to build than 50 regular warships, but Kane believed it would be worth every credit today. On the Marine assault ship USS Thunder, Colonel Ben Rodriguez walked through the staging area where his soldiers were checking their gear. These men and women were the best fighters humanity had ever produced, trained to fight in any environment against any enemy. Colonel, said Sergeant Lisa Webb, the intelligence reports say the Vorthak take prisoners for slave labor. Should we prepare for rescue operations? Rodriguez nodded grimly. Intel says they're holding about 50,000 Kalari civilians in camps on the outer moons. We're going to get every single one of them out. The Marines around him smiled coldly. They had all volunteered for this mission after seeing the videos from Zetha Prime. The sight of families being torn apart and children crying for their parents had made them angry. Very angry. Light years away, Ambassador Veltar huddled in an underground shelter as another wave of Vorthak bombers passed overhead. The beautiful crystal spires of his city were now broken stumps. The great library where he had spent his life studying ancient texts was a pile of glowing ash. Ambassador, said one of his aides, the long-range sensors are picking up something strange. There's a massive fleet approaching the outer system. Veltar felt his heart sink. More Vorthak ships? We don't think so. The energy signatures are different. And sir, they're big. Really big. Veltar moved to the sensor display with shaking hands. What he saw made no sense. Over 200 ships were approaching Zeta Prime, but they weren't Vorthak vessels. These ships were sleek and powerful, moving in perfect formation like a school of deadly fish. On the Vorthak command ship, War Leader Krax studied the same sensor readings with confusion and growing anger. His officers scurried around the bridge trying to identify the approaching fleet. "What species dares to interfere with Vorthak expansion?" Krax growled. His race looked like giant lizards with thick armor and sharp claws. They had conquered 12 worlds in the past 5 years, and no one had ever challenged them. "The ships are broadcasting an identification signal," reported his communications officer. "They claim to be from something called the Human Soul Defense Fleet." Krax laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Humans? I've never heard of them. They must be another weak species hoping to save these pathetic Kalari. How many ships do they have?" "Sir, sensors show 203 vessels." The laughter died in Krax's throat. 200 ships was more than half his own fleet. But he had been fighting and winning battles for 20 years. No one could match Vorthak military might. "Send them a message," Krax ordered. "Tell these humans to leave immediately or be destroyed." At that moment, space around Zeta Prime filled with bright flashes as the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The ships that appeared were unlike anything the Vorthak had ever seen. They moved with perfect coordination, spreading out in attack formation faster than any military force Krax had witnessed. The lead ship, a massive vessel bristling with weapon ports, opened a communication channel that reached every ship in the system. "This is Admiral Lisa Kane of the Human Soul Defense Fleet. We received a distress call from the Kalari people. All Vorthak vessels have exactly 60 seconds to begin withdrawing from this system. Any ship that does not comply will be destroyed." War Leader Krax stared at his view screen in shock. The human admiral's voice was calm and cold, like she was ordering dinner instead of threatening the entire Vorthak invasion force. 60 seconds? Krax roared. "I'll show these humans what happens to those who challenge the Vorthak Empire." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target their flagship. Fire everything we have." But before the Vorthak could fire, something impossible happened. The human fleet moved. All 200 ships shifted position at exactly the same time, creating a perfect sphere around the Vorthak forces. It was like watching a single organism instead of many separate vessels. On the USS Valiant, Admiral Kane watched her fleet take position with satisfaction. "All ships, this is Admiral Kane. The Vorthak have chosen to fight instead of withdraw. Remember, we're not just here to rescue the Kalari. We're here to send a message to every aggressive species in the galaxy." She paused, looking at the tactical display that showed 400 red dots, surrounded by 200 blue ones. "No Vorthak ship leaves this system. None. We're going to eliminate this threat completely so they never hurt innocent people again. All ships, you are weapons free. Show them how humans fight." In the fighter bay of the USS Phoenix, Alex Turner climbed into his cockpit as the launch bay doors opened to reveal the star-filled darkness of space. Behind him, 48 other fighters were preparing to launch. "Raptor Squadron, this is lead. Remember your training and watch each other's backs. We're going to hit them fast and hard before they know what's happening." On the Kalari homeworld, Ambassador Veltar watched his sensors in amazement as the human ships spread out like a net. The Vorthak fleet, which had seemed so large and threatening, now looked small and trapped. "Who are these humans?" he whispered to himself. He was about to find out. The first shots came from the Vorthak fleet. Bright red energy beams lanced out toward the human ships, but they hit nothing but empty space. The human vessels had moved just before the weapons fired, as if they knew exactly when and where the attack would come. War Leader Krax watched in growing confusion as his ships fired again and again, only to see the humans dance away from every shot. It was impossible. No fleet could coordinate that perfectly. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. His tactical officer's voice was shaking. "Sir, they're sharing targeting data in real time. Every ship knows where every other ship is going to be at any moment. They're fighting like a single mind controlling 200 bodies." Commander Alex Turner led his fighter squadron out of the USS Phoenix and into the battle. The space around him was filled with laser fire and explosions, but Alex felt calm. He had trained for this his entire adult life. "Raptor Squadron, form up on me. We're going to hit their command cluster and cut off their communications." The human fighters moved like a school of fish, weaving between the massive capital ships. The Vorthak had fighters too, but they flew in simple straight lines, making them easy targets for the more skilled human pilots. Alex locked onto a Vorthak fighter and fired. The alien ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Around him, his squadron was doing the same thing, destroying enemy fighters faster than the Vorthak could launch new ones. On the USS Valiant, Admiral Kane watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Her fleet was performing exactly as planned. The Vorthak were tough fighters, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. "Target their heavy cruisers first," Kane ordered. "Take out their biggest guns." The human ships concentrated their fire on the largest Vorthak vessels. Beams of pure energy sliced through alien armor like it was made of paper. One by one, the massive enemy ships broke apart and exploded. Captain Tyler Webb commanded the USS Devastator from his position at the center of the human formation. His ship was twice the size of any other vessel in the fleet, built specifically to destroy enemy fleets. For the first time since its construction, the Devastator was about to show what it could do. "Admiral Kane, this is Captain Webb, requesting permission to fire the main gun." "Permission granted, Captain. Pick your target." Tyler smiled grimly as he looked at the largest Vorthak ship, a massive dreadnought that was trying to rally the enemy fleet. The Devastator's main weapon was something new, something the aliens had never seen before. Target acquired. Firing main gun. A beam of energy erupted from the Devastator that was brighter than a small star. It reached across space in the blink of an eye and struck the Vorthak dreadnought directly in the center. The alien ship didn't just explode. It simply vanished, vaporized so completely that nothing remained but glowing particles. War leader Krax felt his ship shake as the human weapons found their mark. Half his fleet was already destroyed or crippled, and the battle had only been going on for 30 minutes. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender offers from 15 of our ships. They want to withdraw." Krax's eyes burned with rage. "Any captain who tries to surrender will be executed."
"We are Vorthak."
"We do not retreat." But even as he spoke, Krax could see that his fleet was doomed. The humans fought with a precision and efficiency that was terrifying to watch. They never wasted a shot, never left themselves exposed, never made a mistake. On the USS Thunder, Colonel Rodriguez watched the space battle through the viewports while his Marines prepared for their own mission. The colonel had studied the intelligence reports about Vorthak prisoner camps on the outer moons of the Kalari system. "Sergeant Webb, are your teams ready for the rescue operation?" Lisa Webb checked her equipment one more time. "Yes, sir. We know where the camps are located. The Vorthak have about 3,000 guards total protecting 50,000 Kalari prisoners." Rodriguez nodded. "Remember, the prisoners are probably scared and weak. We need to get them out fast and safe." "And Lisa?" "Yes, sir. If any Vorthak guard tries to hurt a prisoner while we're there, show them why humans don't like bullies." Webb's smile was cold and dangerous. "With pleasure, sir." The Marine assault ships broke away from the main fleet and headed toward the outer moons. They moved fast and quiet, using the cover of the space battle to reach their targets without being detected. Back in the main battle, Commander Alex Turner was leading his fighters in attack runs against the Vorthak command ships. The alien fleet was falling apart as their leadership was destroyed, but some ships were still fighting desperately. "Raptor lead, this is Control. We're detecting Vorthak ships trying to break through our formation. Can you intercept?" Alex checked his sensors and saw a group of enemy vessels heading toward the planet. They were probably planning to destroy more Kalari cities before they died. "Copy that, Control. Raptor Squadron, follow me. We're not letting any of them through." The human fighters accelerated toward the fleeing Vorthak ships. Alex's fighter was faster and more maneuverable than anything the aliens had, and his weapons were more accurate. One by one, the enemy ships fell to his guns. On Zetha Prime, Ambassador Veltar watched the battle from his underground shelter. The sight was incredible and terrifying. The humans were systematically destroying the entire Vorthak fleet without seeming to take any serious damage themselves. "Ambassador," said his aide, "we're getting reports that human soldiers have landed on the outer moons. They're attacking the prison camps." Veltar felt hope for the first time in days. "Are they rescuing our people?" "Yes, sir." "And Ambassador, the humans are asking if we need medical supplies or emergency shelters. They want to help our wounded." Veltar closed his eyes and felt tears running down his feathered face. His people had asked for help, hoping maybe someone would take a few refugees to safety. Instead, An entire human war fleet had come to destroy their enemies and save everyone. In space, the battle was almost over. Of the 400 Vorthak ships that had attacked Zetha Prime, fewer than 50 were still functional. They tried to run, but Admiral Kane's fleet had surrounded them completely. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "the remaining Vorthak ships are requesting terms for surrender." Kane's voice was ice cold. "Negative, no terms. No survivors. These ships came here to destroy an innocent civilization. They get the same mercy they were planning to show the Kalari. The last Vorthak ships died under concentrated human fire. War leader Krax's vessel was one of the final ones destroyed. As his ship broke apart around him, Krax finally understood what he had encountered. The humans weren't just another species with a military. They were apex predators who had decided to protect the weak from the strong. And they were very, very good at killing. The last Vorthak ship exploded in a flash of light and debris. Space around Zetha Prime was now filled with the wreckage of 400 alien vessels, but not a single human ship had been destroyed. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, watching the tactical display that now showed only blue dots representing her fleet. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the Kalari homeworld." "Put it through." Ambassador Veltar's voice filled the bridge, shaking with emotion. "Admiral Kane, this is Ambassador Veltar of the Kalari people. We asked for help and you gave us salvation. How can we ever repay you?" Kane's expression softened slightly. "Ambassador, you don't owe us anything. We came here because it was the right thing to do." On the outer moons of the Kalari system, Colonel Rodriguez's Marines were finishing their rescue operations. The Vorthak prison camps had been built to hold 50,000 Kalari civilians who were meant to become slaves. Now those camps were empty, except for the bodies of Vorthak guards who had tried to fight instead of surrender. Sergeant Lisa Webb helped an elderly Kalari woman onto a medical transport. The woman's feathers were dull and gray from poor treatment, but her eyes were bright with hope. "Are we really free?" the woman asked in broken English. "Yes, ma'am," Webb replied gently. "You're safe now. We're taking you home." All around the landing zone, human medics were treating injured Kalari, while engineers set up temporary shelters and food distribution centers. The Marines had expected to fight a hard battle to rescue the prisoners, but the Vorthak guards had surrendered quickly when they realized their fleet was being destroyed. Captain Sam Carter commanded the medical frigate USS Mercy. His ship was filled with Kalari refugees who needed treatment for injuries and malnutrition. Carter walked through the medical bays, watching his doctors and nurses work alongside Kalari healers to save lives. "Dr. Williams," Carter said to his chief medical officer, "how are our patients doing?" "Better than expected, Captain. The Kalari are tough people. Most of them will make a full recovery with proper care and nutrition." Carter nodded with satisfaction. This was why he had joined the medical corps, to help people who couldn't help themselves. Meanwhile, Commander Kate Phillips was leading a patrol of human destroyers through the outer system, making sure no Vorthak ships had escaped the battle. Her sensors swept through space looking for any sign of enemy survivors. "Captain," reported her tactical officer, "I'm detecting 3 Vorthak escape pods about 2 million kilometers from the battle zone." Phillips considered her options. The pods probably contained Vorthak officers or crew members who had abandoned their ships during the fighting. Standard military protocol would be to rescue survivors and take them prisoner. "Are they transmitting any distress signals?" Phillips asked. "No, ma'am. They're running silent, probably hoping we won't find them." Phillips thought about the images she had seen of burning Kalari cities and terrified families. These Vorthak had come here to destroy an entire civilization for no reason except cruelty and greed. "Continue patrol. We didn't detect any escape pods." Her crew understood immediately. The Vorthak pods would drift in space until their life support failed. It was a cold decision, but Phillips had no sympathy for people who killed children and burned libraries. Back on Zetha Prime, the first human rescue ships were landing in the capital city. Captain Jake Morrison stepped out of his shuttle onto a landing pad surrounded by crystal buildings that were broken and scorched, but still beautiful. "Ambassador." Veltar met him with a group of Kalari officials. The bird-like aliens moved gracefully despite their injuries, and their colorful feathers shimmered in the light of their star. "Captain Morrison," Veltar said formally, On behalf of all Kalari people, I thank you for answering our call for help. Jake felt uncomfortable with the formal ceremony. Ambassador, we just did what anyone should do when innocent people are in trouble. But Captain, you did more than help us. You destroyed the entire Vorthak invasion fleet. No one has ever defeated them so completely. Jake looked around at the damaged city. Human engineers were already working with Kalari construction teams to repair the worst damage. Medical teams were setting up hospitals. Supply ships were unloading food and emergency equipment. Ambassador, the Vorthak came here to destroy your people because they thought you were weak and defenseless. We made sure they can never hurt anyone again. What Jake didn't say was that Admiral Kane had given very specific orders. No Vorthak ship was to leave the system alive. The message to the galaxy had to be clear. Attacking innocent people under human protection meant total destruction. On the USS Valiant, Admiral Kane was receiving reports from across the system. The rescue operations were proceeding perfectly. All Kalari civilians had been freed from the prison camps. Medical aid was being distributed to anyone who needed it. The damaged cities were being repaired. Admiral, said her intelligence officer, we're intercepting long-range communications from Vorthak space. Word of the battle is spreading fast. What are they saying? The Vorthak High Command is recalling all expansion fleets. They're demanding to know how an unknown species destroyed 400 ships without losing a single vessel. Kane smiled coldly. The Vorthak Empire had built its power on the fear of weaker species. Now they were learning what it felt like to be afraid. Any response from the Galactic Cooperative? Kane asked. Yes, ma'am. They're demanding an emergency session to discuss human military actions. Several species are asking why we deployed an entire battle fleet for a rescue operation. Kane turned to look out at the stars. She knew this moment would come. The galactic community was used to careful diplomacy and limited responses to crises. They had never seen anyone solve a problem the way humans had just solved it. Set up a conference call with the Cooperative Council, Kane ordered. It's time they understood something about human nature. 20 minutes later, Kane was standing in the communication center facing holographic images of dozens of alien representatives. Some looked curious, others worried, and a few seemed angry. The cooperative chairman, a tall insect-like being named Crixtal, spoke first. Admiral Kane, the cooperative demands an explanation for your actions. The Kalari requested refugee assistance, not military intervention. Kane's voice was calm and steady. Chairman, the Kalari asked for help. We gave them help. You deployed 200 warships and destroyed an entire fleet. That's not help, that's warfare. Kane nodded. You're right. It was warfare. We went to war against an empire that destroys innocent people for sport. And we won. But Admiral, interrupted another representative, the cooperative handles interspecies conflicts through negotiation and diplomatic pressure. We don't solve problems by eliminating entire fleets. Kane's expression hardened. And how well has that worked? How many species has the Vorthak Empire destroyed while you were negotiating? How many innocent people died while you applied diplomatic pressure? The alien representatives looked uncomfortable. Everyone knew the Vorthak had been expanding for years while the cooperative issued formal protests and economic sanctions that accomplished nothing. The point, Chairman, is simple, Kane continued. The Kalari people asked for help and humanity answered. We didn't just rescue some refugees and leave the problem for someone else to solve later. We eliminated the threat completely. The Vorthak Empire will never hurt the Kalari again. Kane paused, looking at each alien face in turn. And if any other aggressive species thinks they can attack peaceful civilizations without consequences, they should remember what happened here today. Because humanity takes requests for help very seriously. 3 months after the battle, Ambassador Veltar stood in his rebuilt office looking out at the capital city of Zetha Prime. The crystal spires gleamed in the morning light, more beautiful than ever. Human engineers had not just repaired the damage. They had helped the Kalari build better and stronger than before. A soft chime announced that his daily briefing was ready. Veltar walked to his desk where his aide waited with reports from across the galaxy. What news do we have today? Veltar asked. Good news, Ambassador. The Zorgan Collective just sent a distress call. Their mining colonies are being attacked by raiders. They specifically requested human assistance. Veltar smiled. And? 3 human battle groups are already on their way. The raiders will probably surrender when they see the human ships arriving. This had become the new pattern across the galaxy. When peaceful species faced aggression, They no longer called the Galactic Cooperative for help. They called humanity, and humanity always answered the same way, with enough force to solve the problem permanently. On Earth, Admiral Kane sat in her office reading reports from across human space. The Third Fleet had returned home as heroes, but their work was far from finished. In the past 3 months, humanity had received 47 requests for help from species facing aggression. Each time, the human response was the same. Overwhelming force deployed immediately to eliminate the threat completely. No negotiations, no half measures, no leaving problems for future generations to solve. Colonel Rodriguez knocked on Kane's door and entered with a tablet full of new intelligence reports. Admiral, the Vorthak Empire is collapsing. Their subject species are rebelling now that everyone knows the Empire can be defeated. The Vorthak High Command is requesting a peace treaty with humanity. Kane looked up from her reports. What are our terms? Complete withdrawal from all conquered territories. Reparations to every species they've attacked. Dismantlement of their military fleet. And permanent monitoring by human forces. And if they refuse? Rodriguez smiled grimly. Then we deploy the entire Sol defense fleet and finish what we started at Zetha Prime. Kane nodded with satisfaction. The message was spreading across the galaxy exactly as she had planned. Aggressive empires were learning that attacking innocent people had consequences. Real consequences. On the USS Meridian, Captain Jake Morrison was leading a patrol through Kalari space. His ship now had a permanent assignment protecting the system, along with 5 other human vessels. The Kalari had offered to pay for the protection, but humanity had refused any payment. Captain, reported Lieutenant Brooks, I'm detecting a ship requesting permission to enter the system. It's a Talaxian diplomatic vessel. Jake knew about the Talaxians. They were another peaceful species that had been paying tribute to various aggressive empires for decades, rather than face destruction. What do they want? They're requesting a meeting with Admiral Kane about a mutual defense agreement. Jake smiled. This was also becoming common. Peaceful species wanted to ally with humanity, not because they feared humans, but because they knew humans would protect them from those they should fear. Grant them permission to enter and escort them to the diplomatic station. The Talaxian ship was small and elegant, clearly designed by artists rather than warriors. As it passed the USS Meridian, Jake could see the crew looking in amazement at the human warship that was 10 times larger than their vessel. On the diplomatic station orbiting Zetha Prime, the Talaxian ambassador met with Captain Morrison in the main conference room. The alien looked nervous but hopeful. Captain Morrison, the ambassador said, my people have watched what humanity did here. You saved the Kalari from complete destruction and asked for nothing in return. We did what was right, Jake replied simply. Yes, and that is why we want to join your alliance. The Hegrath Empire has been demanding tribute from our colonies for 5 years. We pay them because we have no choice, but we live in constant fear. Jake leaned forward. Ambassador, if your people formally request human protection, we will provide it. But you need to understand what that means. What do you mean, Captain? It means the Hegrath Empire will be given one chance to withdraw from your territory peacefully. If they refuse, they will be destroyed completely, just like we destroyed the Vorthak fleet. No survivors, no second chances, no mercy for those who prey on the innocent. The Talaxian ambassador was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. Captain, my people have been living in fear for years. We would rather live under human protection than Hegrath oppression. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. Species that had lived in fear for generations were discovering that they didn't have to be victims anymore. They just had to ask humanity for help. The Galactic Cooperative was struggling to adapt to this new reality. Their careful diplomacy and economic sanctions seemed pointless when humanity could solve problems with surgical application of overwhelming force. Chairman Crickstel called an emergency session to discuss the human situation. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to debate what to do about Earth's aggressive protection of peaceful civilizations. The humans are destabilizing our entire system of interspecies relations, complained the representative from the Nexus Federation. They ignore diplomatic protocol and solve every problem with military force. And it works, pointed out the representative from the Kalari. The Vorthak Empire terrorized this sector for decades, while the Cooperative wrote strongly worded letters. Humanity ended that threat in 4 hours. The debate continued for days, but the result was inevitable. The galaxy was changing, and the cooperative could either adapt or become irrelevant. Back on Zetha Prime, Ambassador Veltar received a message that made him smile wider than he had in years. The message was from Admiral Kane, and it was simple and direct. Ambassador, humanity has decided to establish a permanent naval base in your system. We want to make sure the Kalari people never face another threat like the Vorthak Empire. Your system will serve as the headquarters for human peacekeeping operations in this sector of the galaxy. Veltar looked out his window at the construction ships that were already beginning work on the massive orbital facility. The base would host 50 human warships permanently, with more available on short notice if needed. But the most important part wasn't the military protection. It was the message the base would send to every aggressive species in known space. The Kalari were under human protection now. Anyone who threatened them would face the same fate as the Vorthak Empire. The galaxy had asked for help against bullies and tyrants for centuries. The Galactic Cooperative had offered diplomacy and economic pressure. Humanity offered something different. Humanity offered permanent solutions. And across the stars, on thousands of worlds where peaceful people lived in fear of stronger neighbors, the same message was spreading. If you asked humanity for help, you wouldn't get a few refugee ships or a diplomatic protest. You would get the entire human war fleet. And your problems would be solved forever. The age of bullies and tyrants was ending. The age of human protection had begun. And for the first time in galactic history, the innocent had nothing to fear from the strong.